In the sprawling city of Viridia, known as the City of 1,000 Bells, there lived a young man named Elian. Here, the air was always filled with the sounds of commerce, music, and arguments, a symphony of endless distraction. And Elian, well, he was its most distracted son. Elian was truly gifted. He had the hands of a sculptor, the sharp mind of a mathematician, and the tender heart of a poet. But by the age of 25, he had accomplished absolutely nothing. His workshop was a sad graveyard of unfinished projects. You'd see half-carved marble statues without faces, intricate clockwork mechanisms missing their most crucial gears, and parchments of poetry where the ink just trailed off mid-sentence. Elian's mind was like a library where every single book had been thrown onto the floor, chaotic mess of brilliant ideas. He would start his day with a powerful burst of energy, determined to carve a masterpiece. But then a bird would sing at his window, and he'd stop everything to sketch it. While sketching, he'd start to wonder about the aerodynamics of flight and begin building a kite. While building the kite, he'd suddenly remember he was hungry, and by noon he would be fast asleep, completely exhausted from a morning spent doing everything and achieving nothing. His father, Cale, was a disciplined blacksmith who watched his son with a heavy heart. Elian, he would say, the rhythmic clang of his hammer punctuation his words. You have a fire inside you, but it has no chimney. Smoke fills the room, but it gives no heat. You must build the chimney. You must discipline your mind. Elian would nod, feeling the sharp sting of truth in his father's words. But the very next day, the same old pattern would repeat itself. The noise of the world was just too loud, and the noise inside his own head was even louder. The breaking point finally came during the grand exhibition. Elian had promised to unveil a magnificent clock, one that could track the movements of the stars. He had worked on it for months, but only intermittently, of course. On the day of the presentation, standing before the Duke and the city's elders, Elian proudly pulled back the velvet cloth. The clock was breathtaking, beautifully etched with gold and silver. The crowd gasped in awe. But when Elian turned the key to start the mechanism, there was a sickening crunch. A single, tiny gear, one he had forgotten to tighten because he was distracted by a passing parade weeks ago, slipped out of place. The mainspring coiled violently and then snapped with a terrible sound. The clock shattered from the inside out. The crowd didn't boo, they just laughed. It was a polite, pitying kind of laughter that cut deeper than any insult ever could. Humiliated, Elian fled the stage, the sound of the broken gears rattling in his pocket like the bones of his own wasted potential. He ran and ran until the city walls were far behind him, until his lungs burned and the 1,000 bells of Viridia faded into a dull, distant hum. He found himself at the foot of the Iron Mist Mountains, staring up at a peak that pierced the clouds. Legend said that at the very top lived the Keepers of Silence, an order of monks who had mastered the art of the mind. I cannot live as a leaf in the wind anymore, Elian whispered to the cold mountain air, his voice trembling. "I will either learn to steer, or I will die on the rocks." And with that vow, he began his ascent, leaving the city of distractions behind for a chance to finally find the silence within. What will he discover on his journey? Make sure you resubscribed so you don't miss the next part of Elian's story. Thanks for watching.